Welcome everyone to the Win Now podcast, hosted by Deborah Byrd, founder and CEO of Plug and Play SM.
I am so excited for today's show, so let's go.
And then myself, Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon. Hey everyone, welcome to the Win Now podcast. I am one of your hosts. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and I'm super excited to be here today.
And I am your other host, Deborah Byrd.
CEO
and my name is
Plug and Play SM, right? Oh, wait, and I just cut off our special guest. Holy smokes. All right, Rachel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I was just going to say, my name is Rachel Lambert, and I'm excited to be here with both of them.
You know, we are so excited. And, Deborah, why don't you do like the official real introduction of Rachel so that everyone who's with us can feel really good about how excited we are to have her here.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I reached out to her, but I first heard you, Rachel, at the Todd Duncan Sales Mastery event. And I know there was two of you on stage, but your story was just so captivating. And what I appreciated the most is how you kind of opened up your story and how you struggled with different mental illness as a child and was a troublemaker and, didn't want to take medication and kind of went through your journey of how you retrained your brain to then be the CEO and founder of Braincode centers. And I thought, what better person to have on here as, we go through this market, and some of the markets that we've been through have been tough, and just wanted you to jump on here and share your wisdom and, help us retrain or remap our brains in case it's our brain that's preventing us from succeeding. So welcome.
Thank you so much for saying that, Deb. Super excited.
That wasn't a super formal intro. So if you want to go ahead and fill in the gaps of all your credentials, I know there's like multiple initials after your name now, but feel free to do that as well.
Yes, I mean, I'm super excited to be here, and we've definitely been very immersed in the mortgage world, which has been really fun. You guys are definitely a great group of people. For the most part, everybody is so kind and welcoming, so it's been really fun. But yes, I'm an LPC, so I'm a therapist by trade. I am also board certified in neurofeedback, and really I'm just now kind of stepping back and running my amazing team, growing team of amazing clinicians. So happy to be here and talk about the brain and growth and how to channel this awesome organ.
Yeah, it seems to me like that is, people don't realize it's an organ. I like that. So now I'm going to point at my head every time I talk. And it feels like, now that you're around all these mortgage people, you're like, these people are all a little crazy. I know you're thinking that first, but secondarily, it's, I feel like oftentimes in our business, it's what's between our ears, not what we know. It's not our heart that's really keeping us from reaching our potential. And so, kind of when you're talking to a group of mortgage folks, where do you want to start that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just mortgage, right? It's really the whole world. Mental health is such a trendy topic these days because of the stress and wildness that we're all having to undertake. I feel like there's so many different components in every single field, so it's not exclusive to mortgage, but people are looking, how can I not just survive through whatever it is that life is throwing at me, whether that be parents or as a colleague or people as leaders. People are really trying to look for what is going to be a solution to actually get me through, but also come out thriving on the other side. So many people are just not doing too great. So I've been in this field for a while now, but I feel like it's been an avalanche effect over the past couple of years of people really trying to say, hey, what I'm doing is not working. Maybe what I was doing to manage my stress before isn't showing up the same way that I was hoping for it to be now. And so I feel like that's really where untapping the brain's potential comes in.
So do you think, Rachel, that my mom is schizophrenic, and we are dealing with the aftermath of when you've been on lithium for way too long, where her liver and kidneys just can't process medicine the way that they used to, because they're pretty much destroyed at this point. How it's always been explained to us is that there's a chemical imbalance, and is there a way through the neurofeedback that you can fix the chemical imbalance in the brain? I mean, how's that what is neurofeedback and how does it work exactly?
Yeah, so I'm sorry about, schizophrenia is a really intense diagnosis to live with. That's first and foremost. But kind of taking it farther back, and then I'll answer your question. What we do at Braincode centers is brain mapping and neurofeedback. So I'm very big, and Deb was alluding to, so people that maybe didn't listen, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that really is a life sentence of medication management. It's not something you just come back from good willing, right? But that unfortunately wasn't the end of my story, and I really was able to tap in and change the way that my brain functions. So you're talking to somebody that has walked that walk, and I have that personal testimony, but I do want to be sensitive. Like, I'm not anti-medication, and I do believe that there are some diagnoses that are very difficult. So I don't want to minimize that. What I do believe, though, is unfortunately, we don't know enough of us do not know that the brain is capable of changing its own activity. You just have to give it a catalyst in which to do so. And so you just said the word neurofeedback. So for a lot of people that don't know what that is the form of therapy that we utilize in our centers to help our patients heal and get better from all things anxiety, depression, trauma, seizures, concussions, stress management, etc. Neurofeedback, without going into a very long spiel of it, is basically the way that you're able to reward the brain for changing its own activity. And much like the process of anything that you learn that can be a new learned habit, so riding a bike, driving a car, brushing your teeth, walking as a kid, right? You don't think about doing those things on a day-to-day basis. Your brain runs over those same neurological pathways every single day subconsciously. So luckily, we don't have to relearn how to walk when we wake up every morning, right? That is what we did in the neurofeedback clinic with myself. And that is now the offering that I give at our centers is neurofeedback. You create new habitry of the brain by giving it reward. And so to answer your question, I do believe that the brain can heal and transform its activity. Now, while we are working on brainwave activity in our field, you're talking about chemical imbalances. I believe that they're very coinciding with one another. So just because we're not directly changing the chemicals through our process, I can't tell you the number of people that have gotten lab workups done or gotten off their medication successfully by introducing neurofeedback, because the brain is a holistic organ. It works together. So as brain waves start to heal, blood flow starts to heal. As blood flow starts to heal, chemicals can start to heal itself. So it's really just a balancing act of the organ in and of itself, changing and healing holistically, in my opinion.
I can't think of a more complex organ to have chosen to study than, because of all the parts and the tissue. I mean, my goodness, that's pretty complex, girl.
There's a lot to learn. We're always still learning, but it definitely makes it fun, right? It's a ever evolving understanding of a really cool piece of ourselves.
So you mentioned brain map. So is that where a client with you starts, is by having their brain mapped?
Yes. So unlike traditional mental health, where you're typically just assessing qualitative symptoms, right? So typically you go to your doctor, you go to your therapist and talk about the different things you're struggling with. Now, some people might end up, doing some more in-depth testing, but that's just, let's take general how mental health is addressed. I personally believe you're missing data-driven points that could really help you with the solution. And so through that brain map, you are very correct. That is the starting point. And that's what we do with all of our clients to really assess, well, so you're telling me you have anxiety, sleep issues, and high stress. Where in your brain is that actually coming from? Because I want to put those two pieces of the puzzle together.
And is this something that is ongoing? Like, do you just get a brain map and then, you have the treatment? Is it like once a month? Is it once a quarter, once a year? I mean, how does this look just for long-term to be able to sustain the remapping?
Absolutely. So the brain map is the first step. Think of that as like the baseline. And then it really depends. There's some people, like all of you mortgage people, that, don't have much, but other than just a little bit of stress that you want to manage, right? Sometimes that's a little bit easier. So you're not having to come as often. You might come for 6 months, do weekly sessions, et cetera, and feel like $1,000,000 afterwards. Other people with really intense issues, right? Schizophrenia would be one of them, complex trauma or multiple brain injuries, or maybe you are on 2 or 3 different medications. That's obviously going to extend how long you're with us. But whether it is a 6-month program or a 9-month program, in general, the idea at the end of it is you should be leaving transformed, right? You should be leaving with a skill. So I want to teach my clients how to ride a bike, help them master how to ride the bike, and then never forget how to ride that bike again, right? So very similar to my story, I did neurofeedback when I was 17. I'm definitely not 17 anymore, and I don't struggle with symptoms of bipolar. That does not define truly my life anymore. And so I have that skill set. I have those neurological pathways that are ingrained now that I get to choose to go down every single day. And so it's not like I'm having to go back in and rework on the bipolar, if that makes sense, right? I have that skill. And so that's really the idea of the program, is you're setting yourself up for success really for the rest of the future.
Wow.
And so you do the map, that's step number 1. And then the map, does it show parts of the brain that you feel like need to be addressed? Or like, how does that work for someone who's listening and may not have ever heard of neurofeedback or a brain map or any of that?
Yes, you are totally correct, Todd. That is what we do, is we show the clients the results of their brain map, and we'll show them, hey, these are where the different areas of your brain are maybe over or under firing. And that is where it's related to symptoms X, Y, Z. Really, I'm just reading all of these things coming through. That's interesting. I don't know if you guys have like fluid conversations or answer those later, but that'd be kind of interesting hearing people's questions.
Yeah, we roll with it. And so guys, if you guys are listening and you have questions, be sure to put them in the chat so we can ask Rachel. And I know some of you heard her speak as well at the Todd Duncan event. So, ask away. But yes, carry on, Rachel.
So I'll just take one person. They said, is there a way to help with my jumpiness, right? And so let's take that for example here. Jumpiness, right? Or someone may be very sensitive to sounds or lights or just, anything sensory processing happens in our parietal lobe. So if someone were to come in and list qualitatively, maybe I have sensory processing issues or light or sound sensitivity. Well, I'm going to be directly kind of wanting to be curious about what's going on in their parietal lobe, right? So I look at the back side of their head and see, do we have overactive different brainwaves here? Do we have underactive brainwaves here? That tells me a story about somebody, right? So very much so, yes, we can help people with sensory processing issues, but that is what sets us up with the protocols for the neurofeedback. And so not only are we helping clients feel validated in what they're struggling with, but then we're giving them a path forward and a solution as far as, okay, well, what's next? What can we do to actually help really get some of these goals under control, instead of just know, right, that they're a struggle and know maybe how to manage them. What if we actually could get to the root and nab the root? And that's what I love helping people do.
Do you guys have like a model? I know your talk was the 1%, the neurology of the 1%. Are there models of like a goal of where you'd want to get to? And do you ever have clients that come in and they think they're not super anxious, they're not depressed, they seem kind of, they don't think that there's any issues, but then they do the scan and they're like, wow, I didn't even know how much I was, just going on with my life and pretending or maybe suffocating this, thinking that there wasn't anything wrong, but then this helped expose the area, and now, they can live an even greater purpose or potential.
That is a great question. First, people typically are coming to us because they're not feeling well, right? So most of the time you're more so validating and showing people the proof or the data for why they're sitting across from your chair, right? However, I do a ton of networking maps or maps on pretty high functioning individuals, right? That will maybe say, well, I just need to be a little bit better at stress management, or goodness gracious, I really want to work on my golf handicap or something like that. But then we map them and I'm like, looks like, there's a little bit more here to the story. I don't my job is to come alongside and be a supportive role in the journey of brain health, right? However, I am definitely not fearful of calling out what I'm seeing. I'm just showing my clients from pictures of their brain, hey, this area is lit up with this activity. This could mean XYZ. Does that fit for you? And I would say, 99% of people are going to be like, gosh, you're right. That really does show up in that manner. Gosh, this shows up in this manner. So I'll definitely challenge my clients to think about it. For example, there's an attachment center in our brain. It's in our right temporal lobe. And it really helps me understand how people attach to people, to things, right? Do we have a secure, well-grounded attachment? Do we have maybe an anxious or nervous attachment? Or are we maybe more slow and avoidant to attach? Those are some 3 basics. There was one individual, very high functioning, top earner, guy in his field. And I was like, hey, there's something going on in this attachment center. Tell me, how is your attachment to your family, your wife, your business, colleagues? Like, talk to me about that. Maybe your past, your parents. And things are great. Everything's good. Wife's great, kids great, had a great family, had a great upbringing. And I was like, okay, maybe think about it. Just take some time. And I challenge you to think about it. Where does maybe attachment show up as stress in your world? A couple of weeks later, we had a next call and he goes, Rachel, money rules my world. I obsess over it. I think about it. I get stressed out when I feel out of control of it. And it's actually running my life. And that started a whole other conversation, but he was able to identify this deep-rooted attachment that he had. Money is more of like a means to, it was more safety and freedom. Coming from his past, we were able to identify that, and through the neurofeedback and talking, really help him get to new levels. And I tell you that story because most of the time I'm just helping clients identify in their brain where these abnormalities are coming from. But absolutely, if there's something the brain is telling me that could give us information, into maybe deeper levels that a client is, to your point, Deb, maybe not fully aware of, then we'll step into that with them and enter into that curiosity. Absolutely.
So does it go off of historical information too? Like, can you see maybe prior trauma, or is it, and I'm picturing when you do the scan, do you have a conversation to see what triggers with the wavelengths, or is it purely just you sit still and there's all these things connected to your head? Like, kind of visually help us understand the process.
Yes, these are all such good questions. So first off, to answer the first question, yes, there are clinical patterns for really everything, right? So think about your brain as a tapestry or an archive of everything that's gone on. There are reasons why.
That's dangerous.
And people get a little nervous about it, right? But I'm not going to necessarily tell you anything you don't know. I might just frame it in a little bit of a different way to help you understand yourself better. Which, if we're here talking about the 1%, part of you being able to tap into your 1% is understanding maybe some limitations that you don't know about, right? So that's where some of that openness comes from. But there's clinical patterns for everything. So yes, we can see if you have a very, very old head injury. I've been able to ask people like, hey, what's going on? You said you've never had a head injury. There is definitely something going on. Oh, well, yeah, my mom told me she dropped me when I was 8 months old. Could that be why? And I'm like, yes, there it is. So yes, think of it more as like an archive of your story. It's just, and I'm just the expert reading the information, right? So yes, we can see really quite a number of interesting things. Obviously, I can't tell you exactly when you were hit on your head or what your trauma was, but I can say there was something here that was traumatic for you. There was something maybe that you injured yourself with around this age. That's the first answer. The second answer is, it's a lot easier than people think to do a brain map. Think more like taking a look at your heartbeat or measuring blood pressure. You don't typically, unless you're doing a stress test, ask somebody to go run a mile before you get their baseline blood pressure, right? No, you want to get it at rest. That is exactly what a brain map is. So you come in, you sit there, we place the cap over your head, fill it up with a little bit of gel, and then we take a recording. There's nothing being inputted into your brain, simply a reading. So think again, like an EKG of a heartbeat or an ultrasound of a body part, measuring tool. And then all you do have to do is sit there. So it's like a fingerprint. We're just looking for the print. And then we can be the ones to read that. So our clients just sit there, we take a recording, 5 minutes with your eyes closed, actually 10 minutes with your eyes closed, 10 minutes with your eyes open, and then you're pretty much done. And that is all we need to get the baseline.
Is that a QEED report? I had that in my notes, but I didn't actually say anything about it when I listened to you speak before.
That is correct. QEEG.
Oh, QEEG tells you that I don't hear well, apparently.
Or maybe I was mumbling my G's and D's.
That's all right. I just have bad handwriting, but that is okay. So that to me is pretty fascinating, especially since my mom dropped me on my head when I was a kid.
That explains it all, Todd.
I know, that's what I'm thinking, but I was wearing a snowsuit. It's Pennsylvania, so like my head was protected apparently, but she still freaked out and left my brother. She was voting. She left my brother at the voting station. Luckily, our neighbor was there and brought him home. And so once they've got that map and you do that, then what does the rest of that process look like?
Yes, so that is where that neurofeedback journey comes in. So neurofeedback would be the therapy that we quote unquote prescribe to get our clients feeling better. So neurofeedback is that process of rewarding the brain to basically teach it a new way of distributing its neurological patterning. Really think about anything, you're just learning something new. So sometimes people tend to overcomplicate how the brain learns. Have either one of you guys and anybody listening taken a Psychology 101 course? Maybe
Yes.
Have you heard of Pavlov and the dog?
Yes.
So that's classical conditioning. Under the umbrella of behaviorism, there's another form of learning called operant conditioning. So we utilize operant conditioning, which is reward-based training. So if you give the brain reward, it can learn. Think about do either of you guys have kids?
4.
3.
4 kids. Oh my gosh. Todd,
It's the common response.
I only have 3, so I'm an underachiever.
Oh
I
my
had 4
goodness.
and 5.5 years, so I'm a top reproducer and overachiever.
I like that. So you have lots of experience in this then, helping kids learn how to walk. Okay, so kids start learning how to walk. They ultimately are going to fall over. What do you do when they stand back up and try again?
Yay.
Most people probably don't say, hey, buddy, looks like your proprioception was off. Looks like you lost eye contact with mommy and daddy. So make sure to keep your feet nice. No, you don't explain to kids how to walk. You do exactly what you just did, Deb. You auditory, yay, and visual reinforcement, right? It is actually known that kids that grow up in more so neglected households sometimes have delayed and motor and speech function has nothing to do with their abilities, their brains and bodies' abilities to do anything motor function wise. It has the ability to do with there's no reinforcement being done there. And so when you are providing your kid with that reinforcement, it helps them learn neurologically how to walk faster. Reward is huge for everything. It's how we learn to do truly so much of what we all do subconsciously nowadays without even thinking about it. So neurofeedback is the process in which we help the brain learn. To get it to learn, we place a few little electrodes on the head. The clients are sitting in a big comfy chair. There's a screen in front of them. They have headphones over their ears. We provide them auditory and visual feedback on the screen and in the headphones when their brain hits the goals or the thresholds neurologically that we're asking it to. So it's almost as if the brain is looking into a mirror, if you will, and then auto-correcting to change its own activity. They're just seeing it in the form of more of like a video game. So they actually get to play video games, but they're doing it with the power of their brain. So they're not controlling the video game with thoughts, they're controlling it really with brain power. And as they optimize that on the back end, we as clinicians get to see their entire brain start organizing and self-regulating in itself. It's fascinating.
I mean, has this been brought into the school system you think about how much pain and agony and just trouble that kids get in and can really get off the course. Have y'all been able to break through different school districts, or what does that look like with children?
Yes. So one of my number one missions truly on this earth that I feel called to is getting just the word out there, being more educational in the aspect of there are different ways to address mental health, and it's not a one size fits all. Therapy, again, I'm a therapist, right? But therapy can't necessarily change how the brain fires. medication. There's a time and a place for medication. Exercise, nutrition. I mean, we could talk about all of that and it's all important, but neurofeedback's barely even on the map. Yet it's been around since the 1940s. So why do more people not know about a way to get their kid that is maybe medication resistant, or get their kid that has tried therapy for years or maybe won't go to therapy? Why is there no other options for these people? So I want to get the word out that there, because so many people just don't know. I can't tell you the amount of people after we work with their kid, get them off their ADHD medication or change their life, and their parents are like, why did I have to go through hell and back to learn about this therapy? It's just because it's not as mainstream as it needs to be yet. I'd say it's definitely growing. When I started in the field, it was as if what I did was non-existent. So it's definitely gaining quite a bit of traction, but it's still a very misknown therapy option for so many people.
So you mentioned ADHD. What are all the different things that neurofeedback and Braincode centers that you offer services for?
Just for all of the different symptoms, I would say our top 3 would be anxiety, focus, ADHD, all that stuff, and performance. So anything that's limiting your performance. But on the website, we kind of list the top 10. I don't like to, from a business standpoint, right? You're supposed to have your niche. My niche is the brain. However, the brain controls like everything. So, right, we have questions over here. Can it fix jumpiness? ADHD, what other things can it fix? The brain controls so much. So when people come to us with really specific things, usually there's a pretty specific protocol or answer that you can do. But definitely, I would say very common anxiety. Everyone I feel like has anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, sleep, migraines, mood disorders.
But like OCD, dyslexia, is any of that? I mean,
yes, lots of OCD, lots of dyslexia.
Wow.
All right,
very interesting.
Whole different conversation, since I have that in my family, but we won't bore everyone with my own personal questions. But I love the idea when you say that you help people with performance as well. So we've got, our listeners are in real estate, mortgage, and other sales areas, and I think that they're all trying to really improve their performance. So what do you see as the top things that get in people's way?
Yeah, I would say, here's the thing, to change the brain, you have to have some level of learning and consistency. Most people that are smart when it comes to the routine and how they're already successful, but they're craving and looking for that last little bit. It's what are you probably not doing to help your brain perform better? Most people know what it is that they need to do, but then maybe they're not willing to make those small micro changes to do it. But there's so much that you can control to help your brain, whether that's getting into a state early and doing breath work. Breath work isn't just breath work. Breath work changes how your brain fires. So I think a lot of people know, okay, breath work is so important, I should do it. Well, are you doing it as a reaction to stress, or are you doing it to be proactive before stress happens? Are you doing it to get your brain in this habit game of when stress happens, this is what I automatically start to do? So instead of breath work or, okay, I got to slow down, I'm feeling stressed out, how can you use it more as a proactive measure? So starting the day, increasing that breath work so you're getting just nice, beautiful oxygen to the brain right out the gate. What are you ingesting into your system on a day-to-day basis? I mean, everything that we ingest, our brain and our body is the vehicle to everything. So how are you treating the vehicle? I mean, these are things that everybody knows to do. Sometimes, again, people just aren't willing to make those small changes in their daily routine to do it.
Well, Deborah was showing us her sweet tarts.
I was going to say,
before we got on today, because she was disappointed she had so many yellow sweet tarts. So
look at this. Look at all these yellows. Like the sugar
Bad.
has an impact, Rachel.
Bad for brain health, Deb. Bad for brain health.
Well, this was a mid-afternoon snack. She already had a couple rolls for breakfast.
It's like a food group for me. I do need to grow up in the way that I eat, and it's pathetic that this is where most of my color comes from. As sad as that is I don't eat any fruits and vegetables. I haven't even had water today. So would you say that your food does that really make a big impact on your brain?
Yes, Deb, we're going to need to talk later, you and I, about this. This is very...
It's turned into an intervention.
Goodness gracious.
Several have tried. I know. I just don't like food. I don't like crave. I don't cook. Everything I eat has always been plain and dry. Our dad raised us from a very young age, 6 months old and on, because my mom lost custody of us, and he never cooked. So everything we eat is like plain and dry, which I'm kind of surprised because he's not one who would ever allow us to be high maintenance. To me, I thought it was low maintenance, but yeah, I guess I really need to grow up. I mean, I'll be 40 this year, Todd.
Oh my gosh, well, you're still a decade or so or more behind me, but that's okay. That's a whole nother thing. And so, I love the idea of breath work. So like besides something like breath work, what are some other simple things that people could learn that they could do on their own, obviously, as well as, of course, call you for advice as well. But what are things that people can do themselves that'll improve their performance?
Yeah, this is definitely more in that biohacking realm, but I mean, that's what we're doing, right? I'm a big fan of cold therapy. I feel like cold therapy is also starting to become a little bit trendy lately, but we've seen before and after brain maps on people doing cold therapy, and it's pretty extraordinary. It's so good for a number of reasons. The gentleman Huberman Lab, feel free to check out his podcast. I mean, he gives a ton of way better nuggets than I'm going to on that right now. But what I've seen from a quantitative standpoint is pretty phenomenal. If you don't have access to a cold therapy place, ice and bathtubs, that can be good. Cold showers. If you don't have access to a bathtub, everybody has access to a shower. Obviously, cold showers are a little bit harder than still water because it's going to be constantly moving. So slowly break yourself into that. I want to say it is, which is better, cold plunge or cryotherapy? I like cryotherapy too. I don't know the research. Sometimes I think people get really into what's the best way of doing things. I mean, something is better than nothing, right? So if the word keeps being, I can't do that. Well, you can take a cold shower. So just try it for 30 seconds, work yourself up to a minute, incorporate that into your morning routine. Tapping. We talked about this at the sales mastery, but bilateral tapping truly takes you from a over-aroused sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state. We live in a sympathetic state as a society. It is just how our nature is to run, right? And people sometimes, I think, get confused with, okay, I'm super productive, but it's coming from a stressful place, which is going to lead them to burnout, versus coming from a really clean, sustainable source of energy. Tapping can help take you from that over-aroused state into a nice, calm, focused state. So if you just bilaterally tap, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, you can do it for 60 seconds. If you want to get extra credit, do the breath work while you're tapping, knock it out in 2 and 1. That can really calm it down. I really love, there's a resource called Touch Points. There are these little wearables that you can actually buy online. You just strap them on like a watch. You can wear them during meetings, wear them during presentations, and it'll actually trick your entire body into being into this calm state where you're not having to do the tapping. So that's another great resource as well.
Wow.
They all couldn't see it that we were all tapping while you were doing that. So since only the speaker mode is on, I mean, I think that's super interesting. I mean, anything like that we as a community here can learn is really awesome. And, Deborah makes fun of me. If I was in my backyard, I've got a sauna and I've got a cold plunge out back. So I'm definitely.
Okay, but we need to clarify, your cold plunge you set it to 74 degrees. I have a feeling that's not cold.
That was my not so cold plunge. It's getting colder now. It's
okay.
60 now. So I've worked my way down. It's Arizona. It's hot here. I gotta get used to this. I'm a wimp.
Yeah, clearly.
Remember, something is better than nothing.
Yes, thank you. I feel much better now that Deborah called me out. It's all good.
So I'm only gonna have 2 sweethearts then, because that's better than having the entire sleeve in one.
I was literally just gonna say that. Like, I would challenge you, maybe limit 2 to 3 today.
Well, since they're almost all yellows, that won't be difficult. Okay, so I have a question list. Todd, did you want to? I know I kind of interrupted you. Did you want to add to your?
Well, Michael gave us a thing. He said, I've had limiting beliefs as far back as I can remember, 50 plus years, and can't seem to figure out what the source has been of them, which has certainly been impacting my performance. And so And ironically, he's reached out to your Dallas office, set an appointment, but limiting beliefs again, I think is such a big thing. So how would you address that?
So this is where the beauty of my analogy, software versus hardware, comes into play. I think sometimes we can be our own worst critic because we feel like, let's say a limiting belief. Okay, I'm going to refocus on things I'm grateful for. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to be mindful, right? And this is where it's like you can do and will yourself into some positive state or will yourself out of, okay, I know what the limiting belief is. Now I need to change the limiting belief. Oh, but it seems like I've been doing this for 50 years and I can't seem to do it. Why? I believe that a lot of what we try to do as humans is software updates. So we see a therapist, so we get on medication, so we exercise, so we start a yoga practice, so we start journaling. Those are all really great software updates. I think all of them are very beneficial. If you are trying to download software on hardware that is part of the issue, you are going to reach limitations. And this is the beauty and the grace between when people say, we'll change how you think, we'll get to the root of it. Well, people told me that my whole life, yet I look at it and I have a diagnosis and I'm completely out of control of my brain, right? And so you have to take back control of your brain's physiology before sometimes the software is actually going to work. And this is why I see countless people that really do, they're trying their darndest to have a great life and to be the best version of themselves, be a better mom, be at the top, 1% of their career. Something's holding them back. Sometimes that missing piece is the actual neurochemistry of your brain. So get to that so that the software can start to work. So, I am biased, right? But if you can learn how to actually unlock your brain's potential, sometimes that's where all the fruit is born.
Got it. So the neurofeedback is the hardware update would be the simple way of saying it.
It's definitely going to get you there a lot faster. I do believe there's other ways that you can change your brain activity, but you have to be it's like an intensive process to get there. You're doing breath work, doing tapping, you have to figure out a way to reward your brain for that state. And that's not the easiest thing to do all on your own.
Agreed. What about your thoughts to yourself? So if the neurofeedback can help with the rewarding of, kind of, I guess, remapping, but what about if you're your own issue with the negative self-talk or being so critical? Is that part of, can that be fixed? Because I would see where that could be a reoccurring issue or problem if you don't fix that.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it, right? It's almost like that, the chicken and the egg. I do think, yes, this is why we work with our clients to let's work on what you're downloading, but let's also work on the hard drive at the same time. If we reach, let's say, for example, I see brainwaves have changed. We've done a before and after map. The brain looks great, but somebody keeps coming in and they're like, I feel a little bit better, but gosh, my thoughts still keep haunting me, or gosh, I still feel like they're out of control. This is where then behavior needs to catch up with the brain's new ability. This is where things like therapy or journaling or mindfulness or figuring out what is that root of why there's such self-criticism or negative thinking, where is that actually coming from? And then that's when I believe it's good to take it deeper, right? And figure out where is that limiting belief actually coming from so that we can get to that root, pull it, and people can experience the freedom on the surface.
Have you ever done this on identical twins?
We have quite a few brain maps on identical twins, yes.
Are they usually similar or different?
I love mapping families of all kinds. I can't tell you, we have a ton of families. I bet you over the past 10 years, I have hundreds of full families that we've gotten to see maps on. It is so fun saying, because parents will be like, oh gosh, Johnny, he's just like me, and Susie, she's just like her father, right? And it's crazy to see similarities in the patterns. With identical twins, I would not say, I don't have as much data on that as I do like family trees from a QEEG standpoint. The ones that I'm thinking of right now, there's a few that look pretty darn similar, but they also were coming in for similar struggles. So I'd be more curious to know other identical twins that maybe operate differently, and they're not coming in because they're both have ADHD or both have like anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yes. Because that's what I've always found is fascinating is here we came from the same environment. We have the exact same DNA. We were actually delivery table surprise twins. They didn't know there was two the whole time, but we couldn't be more different. Like and Todd, I mean, you could probably say too, just from being around us, but which I did have some of my mom's influence more so than she did because my family didn't have a relationship with her. For some reason, I loved going to the different psych wards and mental institutions to just keep learning about all of her different experiences. But, in a society when most people want you to be as similar as possible, maybe I rebelled and always tried to be as different as possible too. So I'm sure there's deep rooted things there.
Come in and bring her in and we can do a
Yeah.
map and see what's going on.
So where are all your locations?
My main locations are in Denver, so I have multiple clinics out there. We are expanding to Dallas. Well, we have one in Dallas, but I'm expanding the centers out there, so we'll probably have 3 by the end of the year. We have a remote solution, which is really great for people that don't live in either of those places. And then I actually live in Oklahoma now, so soon there will be one in Tulsa.
So I love the idea of remote because I saw that on the website. And so is it all states or are there limitations on that?
We actually have one of our clients is in Africa. One of them is in Dubai. So international, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
All right.
How in the world does that work? Do you like ship them the thing and they put it on? I mean, wow, that's crazy.
That's exactly it. Now, I would say if we don't do as intensively clinical cases that way, so you have to be a good candidate. If it's just very classic, some anxiety, some stress, some depression, some ADHD, great candidate. But if it's, I really wouldn't take like a schizophrenic client and say, here, like, you're a great candidate for remote.
All right. So we're talking to, as I said, people that are all pretty much high achievers in sales. Is there something that you thought we would talk about or you thought we would ask you about that we didn't, that you want to make sure we share?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
I was just here for it, ready for whatever questions you guys had for me. I would say, think of it like a golf swing. Sometimes, let's say, as a professional golfer, I mean, what's the number one thing? They've trained their bodies to the max, and they'll be the first person to tell you, and they're constantly looking for ways. Okay, what do I do to train this organ between my 2 ears? It's the same thing with the 1%ers. If you already feel like you have reached your full capacity or you're just looking for fine tuning, I mean, that's then what we can do is do the fine tuning. Your brain's always capable of optimizing itself. And so if you are sitting here saying like everything's good and you don't have any goals, then I feel like that right there could be the limiting factor. Your brain is actually craving wanting to get 1% better. So why would you not want to try to train it in that capacity and see how much better you could get as a parent, as a business owner, as a leader? And so, I'm just a big believer, continue pushing. There's always more that you can do. And you probably haven't even begun to unleash what your full capacity.
Is there an age limit at all? Like, is there a cutoff where it's like, you're too far gone, or is there typically a window of people that you guys like to see?
I'd say our biggest window is 30, or honestly, we see a ton of kids, so it's hard to say. Probably more like 10 to 60 would be a big range that we honestly work with. My oldest client to date, she was 95. She literally just wanted to work on facial recognition. Swear to God, she was like, I go to church and I can't remember some of my really good friends' names. It's driving me crazy. So started doing there's some different areas of your brain that control facial recognition. So we started kind of working on those areas. And she was like, oh my gosh, Rachel, can remember everybody's name. So I believe the brain's always capable of continuing to learn. It's until we die that we stop learning, unless we choose to put a cap on our learning.
Well, that's good to know, because that part of the brain that recognizes faces in my brain doesn't work. So it just tells me that it just needs to have a little bit of fine tuning.
Fine tuning, auto adjustments.
Well, that needs a lot of tuning, I should say. Like that's one of my most embarrassing things. My wife's like, "That's our neighbor across the street." I'm like, "All right, sorry."
Hey, neighbor.
All right, Deborah, how do you want to close us out?
Well, my mind immediately went to maybe that's just a memory issue. Does this work with dementia?
So that's where actually so many good questions, but that is where we can help figure out where's the root coming from. Is it a facial recognition issue? Is it a memory issue? Or is it sometimes a paying attention issue? So sometimes people they're like, oh, I'm so bad with faces, but is your brain actually just going too quick? Someone introduces themselves and then you don't even store it. So that's actually a whole other processing speed issue that we just kind of fine tune. This is why the brain map's fun, because then we take the guessing as far as, well, why is my memory so bad? Maybe your memory's fine. Or maybe you do have some early signs of dementia. We can kind of check that out too.
So how could people, oh, go ahead, Todd.
You're asking the question I was going to ask. Go for it.
Say, how could people, and for those who are just listening or watch this after the fact, how could they either follow you on social, maybe give out your website, email if you feel comfortable, so people can contact you with more questions, kind of let the audience know how they can get in touch with you?
Yes. Oh, thank you. So anytime you guys have questions, like I said, I love at least consulting with people and letting them understand that there's always something more. Braincodecenters.com is a great source to kind of check out and read more. You can also fill out an inquiry on that website. Braincode Centers on Instagram. We try to be pretty fun with our interactions on there, just really educating people about brain health and tools and cold plunging and all that fun stuff. Info at Braincode Centers if you want to shoot an email and get a free consultation. I love spending 45 minutes with people and at least empowering them with knowledge. So those would be the best ways to get a hold of us.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put that all in the show notes. What else, Deb, do you want to ask before we let everyone, including Rachel, go on and enjoy their day?
Last thing is, if you're an executive that's listening to this, can they hire you to come speak at maybe their sales summits, or do you guys also do speaking engagements for those who are wondering?
Absolutely. Angie and I love speaking. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it truly is one of my favorite things to talk about, whether it's the neurology of the 1%, neurology of performance, neurology of leadership. I mean, your brain, like I said, there's a spinoff in how you show up in every one of those different roles. So we can get really specific on neurological activity in whatever role or capacity we're looking to talk about in a group setting. So absolutely would love to collaborate.
Perfect. All right. Well, so many of you are in the industry. You work in organizations where you need to hire Angie and Rachel to come in and talk. I would encourage you all to check out Braincode Centers. Certainly the ask that Deborah and I have is, please make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe. If you're watching this on your favorite podcast platform, please give us a subscribe. And if you feel we've earned it, a 5-star review be awesome as well. And then Deborah, why don't you give out all your social channels? Because you always need people to support and follow all of us as well.
So if you follow plugandplay_SM, it is a social media marketing company for loan originators. Sorry, real estate agents that are listening. I always joke that since I was once a loan officer, I choose not to work with all real estate agents. That's just a little joke, but I know how hard loan officers work. And, our goal is to transform lives with media, just one social post at a time. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you both so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. That was awesome, everyone. We look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Win Now podcast. Thanks. Have a great day.